Splice is a movie about why having kids should be illegal. Directed by Vincenzo Natali, who's most notably known for directing the movie Cube, an educational children's movie about the importance of shapes, Splice itself is also an educational movie about how far we've strayed from God as a species and how we're all going to be smited for it. Beginning with one of the most horrific things of all time, childbirth, we see that the movie features Adrian Brody, or as I like to refer to him as Mr. King Kong, as a character named Clive, as well as Sarah Polley as Elsa, his partner, a pair of leading genetic engineers who specialise in the world of genetic splicing. After a successful delivery, reinforcing the fact that successful is very much a subjective term, we hear them say out loud that it's been born with no physical discrepancies, before proceeding to introduce us viewers to what can only be described as a physical discrepancy. That baby's looking kinda funny. Must be French or something. After introducing it to another slightly phallic ball of flesh, not too dissimilar to what's in my trousers ever since the accident, they do a secret handshake. Clive and Elsa created these life forms, but they did it wrong. Instead of creating life using their genitals, they created them by splicing together genetics from different creatures to create your average looking Welsh person. And since this discovery, they've figured out how to take these disgusting blobs of flesh and turn them into other disgusting blobs of flesh, known as humans. What they aim to do is use their knowledge of genetic splicing with human DNA in order to create a master race of fleshy balls so that they can create cures for cancers and diseases. Something which starts to raise a few questions, as using human DNA in an experiment like this is about as ethical as that time I owned a hamster. But shortly after making this historical scientific breakthrough, they find out from the higher-ups that the company is going to be pivoting and that their lab is now going to be focusing on something else because the world isn't quite ready for this and curing cancer benefits nobody. So after being told that their research must cease effective immediately, they proceed to effective immediately not do that and continue on doing exactly what they very much shouldn't be doing. In secrecy, they continue with their research using human DNA, from what Elsa calls an anonymous female donor, as eventually the pair are successful at creating human life in a way that's somehow more complicated than the normal method. Because this is unofficial and off the books, they plan to not let the fetus develop to full term and just want to keep it around long enough to see if their plan would work in an official setting. But after a while, the baby does this strange thing known as growing, and much like all children, suddenly it starts being born out of its weird little flesh sack. Elsa has to stick her hand in the science sussy when suddenly something grabs onto her, so much like the good dad that he is, Clive proceeds to perform an emergency C-section and watch the creature drop onto the floor like that one time I was born. Jealous of all the attention that the new blasphemous offspring is receiving, Elsa thinks that it's a great time to start having a seizure, forcing Clive to come and rescue her. And after he helps Elsa get back to a stable and safe condition, his paternal instincts suddenly kick in and he goes to kill the creature. But they find it out of the incubator and running around the room, as it becomes apparent to the pair of them that the creature is aging incredibly fast. So instead of killing it like they originally planned to do, they decide to use this valuable opportunity to observe its lifespan, as they don't anticipate it living very long anyway. We see that a month has then passed, and this disgusting abomination has turned into a disgusting abomination, a child. Elsa has begun humanizing the creature by giving it a dress and a children's toy, and it demonstrates its intelligence by reading the letters on Elsa's t-shirt and spelling them out to say nerd. What a nerd. Which gives Elsa the idea to call the creature Dren, which is nerd spelled backwards. Much like how dog spelled backwards is God, because dogs is God. Clive's brother Gavin, who also works at the facility, discovers their hidden experiment after being attacked by Dren and almost stabbed to death with her pointy tail with a spike in it, something that all girls have. At this point, the cat is out of the bag. Or should I say the abomination is out of the flesh sack. But Clive convinces Gavin to stay quiet about what he's just witnessed, much to Gavin's dismay due to the potential consequences that everyone at the facility might face if Dren was ever discovered. But much like a person who doesn't care so much for others around her, Elsa proceeds to not care so much for others around her, and becomes even more attached to Dren, acting as if she's her very own mother. Something that Clive seems to be struggling with, due to him attempting to view her as nothing more than another one of his science experiments. And after a while of being hidden in the laboratory storage area, Dren begins to fall sick, so they attempt to lower her temperature by submerging her in cold water, as if a high temperature isn't an evolutionary feature designed to fight infection. Clive starts to get a little carried away and holds her under the water, until eventually she stops moving. Thinking that she's dead, he lets go, but suddenly Dren wakes up and begins breathing under the water like some kind of bell-end-headed mermaid. At this point, much like a parasite, Elsa is very attached to Dren and views her as a very own child. We see that she gives her an old Barbie doll and tucks her into bed at night, with it clearly developing into something far more than just another one of their experiments. And speaking of their experiments, it's now time for them to unveil their voluptuous balls of flesh to everyone, where the pair proceed to violently kill each other in front of a conference and douse the audience in blood. Originally, they were supposed to be male and female, but somehow the female decided that she'd had enough of that boring period stuff and decided to embrace her toxic masculinity by turning into a male and committing a murder. After the average male gamer moment is over and they're done playing with each other's guts, but not in the fun way, Clive and Elsa are forced to sneak Dren out of the facility because people apparently don't like it when violent sentient scrotums do violent sentient scrotum things. They've taken Dren to an old farmhouse owned by Elsa's mother that's currently unoccupied on the account of her mother being her ex-mother, which happens to be the perfect place to hide your highly illegal not-so-human creature that looks like a rejected extra from a System of a Down video. For the entirety of her life, the whole 2 weeks of it, Dren's been forced to remain inside and out of sight of the general public, where she's also been forced to continuously eat the same bowl of slop because they either hate her or are just really bad cooks. Finding this whole process incredibly tedious, Dren quite literally tells them this by spelling it out and telling them that she wants to go outside. But because people are out there and they smell kinda funny, she's told that she needs to stay inside, which results in Dren flipping over a table and throwing things around the room, just like a real child. Telling them, "You're not my real parents," Dren escapes by breaking out of a window and climbing onto the roof, followed by Clive and Elsa following her, but once they approach, Dren slips like the clumsy little insult to God that she is, before managing to save herself by sprouting wings, also just like a real child. She's about to fly away because screw you, mum and dad, but quickly comes back and embraces them for a hug after being told, "We love you" by Clive. A key turning point to really signify to the viewer that Clive is way more invested in Dren than he originally thought, with her importance to him transcending much further than just another one of his science experiments. That's what I call my kids. After finding the sweet embrace of fatherly love after being drowned in a dirty sink that one time, Dren begins to draw pictures of Clive, which are discovered by Elsa. Not only does she find the pictures, but she also finds that Dren's been keeping a cat, signifying to Elsa that she carries many human traits within her, but being more of a dog person, Elsa takes it away from her, with the excuse of not knowing what diseases it might carry. And it's at this point in the movie where it starts to become apparent that the parenting roles between Elsa and Clive have switched, with Elsa suddenly acting incredibly cold and clinical towards Dren, almost at the flick of a switch, with her in the beginning having an almost immediate and overwhelming motherly bond with the creation, while Clive viewed her as nothing more than just that, a creation for scientific pursuit. With Elsa's entire demeanour towards Dren seeming to take a complete 180, with her motherly bond being replaced with the desire to innovate and research, while Clive now shows genuine compassion and care for her. He introduces Dren to music and begins to make her laugh by showing off his incredible dad tier dancing moves. And after Dren joins in, clearly enjoying the time that the pair are having together, Clive quickly stops himself after noticing that he's attracted to her because he needs professional help. He then comes to the realization that she's been created with Elsa's DNA and not the DNA of an anonymous donor. Confronting Elsa about this, Clive pulls out the old tried and true women be crazy by saying that Elsa is acting mentally unstable. Except in this situation, it seems to make a bit of sense, considering that Elsa's mother was also incredibly mentally unwell, and things of that nature can sometimes be hereditary. Trust me bro, I googled it. But if mental illness is hereditary in Elsa's family, well then that exact DNA is the DNA that Dren was created with. Sometime later, Elsa attempts to return the cat to Dren because what's a bit of life-threatening disease anyway, but instead of happily accepting the pet, Dren kills the animal right in front of her with her spike in the end of her tail, while smiling directly at Elsa. But Elsa, being the only one who's allowed to brutally kill cute and fluffy animals, slaps Dren across the face, resulting in Dren holding the spike to Elsa's neck before trying to flee. Elsa, with the appropriate response to a misbehaving kid, knocks her out for the inexcusable crime of disobeying her mother. Elsa decides to brutally mutilate her to show her who's boss, by saying that she quite literally needs to dehumanize her in order to stop the violent behavior, so strips off her clothes, removes her jewelry, and wipes away the makeup that she put on her earlier. She then proceeds to get all medieval on her by removing the tip of her tail, while she can feel absolutely everything. Just the tip. Clive returns to see the aftermath of what Elsa has done to her, with it becoming incredibly apparent to him that the motherly love that she once showed for Dren is now completely absent and has been replaced with a cruel, strict husk of a person with very little care or compassion for the life in front of her. The next morning, Clive returns to the barn to check on a mutilated Dren, and apparently she's feeling much better as she presents herself completely naked before proceeding to kiss him. Talk about daddy issues. They then engage in some highly illegal interspecies activities that me even describing would probably result in me being added to a few more lists than I'm currently on, as we see that the spike in the end of her tail has completely regenerated. But the spike isn't the only thing that we're seeing, as Elsa walks right into the barn and catches them in the act, as Clive is sleeping with her daughter in science experiment, all at the same time, leaving Dren, after returning to their apartment in the city to talk about this. You know, the completely normal thing to do after interspecies copulation. And like the perfect boyfriend that he is, Clive attempts to gaslight Elsa into thinking that this is all her fault for creating Dren in the first place. Which is technically true in the same logic that it's also his fault for putting his penis in her. A tactic that I guess just works, as they now decide that this has all gone too far and they need to kill her because they love making stupid decisions. But after returning to the barn, they discover that Dren is already dying because apparently Clive's game was just that bad. After she passes, they bury her outside as they realise they've just dodged a bullet, before another bullet comes flying directly towards them, in the form of their boss from the lab, who's been brought out here by Clive's younger brother Gavin, who caved in and told him. But just as they tell their boss that he's too late and that Dren is already dead, a very much alive and not dead Dren flies right past them and throws the boss into the trees, as apparently she's respawned. Just like that time Clive tried to drown her, she didn't die, she just evolved. Like a Pokemon with daddy issues. The same thing that happened to the fleshballs from the conference, switching genders and brutally murdering each other, has happened to Dren. Dren, now a he, swipes up Gavin next and flies him out into the forest, resulting in Clive being pulled into a freezing cold pond while trying to chase after him. After climbing out of the water, Dren begins to emerge from behind him in her new male form. And witnessing this, Elsa decides to take off running, leaving a now unconscious Clive behind, because boys are gross. She then runs directly into a tree because she's an idiot, before Dren climbs on top of her, now speaking words, because I guess boys are just better at that or something, and tells Elsa that he wants inside you, before unfortunately doing just that. Clive then wakes up from his incredibly mistimed beauty nap and impales Dren with a stick from behind, but just like Dren did with the cat earlier, he pierces Clive right through the heart with his spike, because that's what he does to everyone he sleeps with. Seeing an opportunity to act, Elsa takes it and brings this nightmare to an end by crushing Dren's skull with a rock, because science is stupid. With both Clive and Dren being dead, and those two other guys I guess. It then skips ahead some time as we see Elsa in a meeting with the higher-ups from the company, talking about her human splicing research and how they're going to take it to the next level. And after it being revealed that despite everything that happened to her and the people around her due to the pursuit of human-animal hybrid splicing, she agrees to continue onwards with it, before standing up to reveal that she's pregnant with her child and grandchild all at the same time. Now that's efficiency. So before this video comes to an end, I'd like to just give a massive shout out to all of the YouTube members and patrons, the people who every month go out of their way to continue to support the channel, something which I value an incredible amount. If you're interested in becoming a YouTube member or a patron, not only are you just generally helping support the channel, but you also get access to a few cool bonuses, like being able to join the private Discord server, where you get access to uncensored versions of videos going forwards. Starting off with the latest YouTube member sign-ups, a massive thank you to Matty VSM, JulieNot666, Mr. Dove Neals, Jack H, This Is Neat, Moritz Von Sado, Paul Bender, Jimmy Yarbrough, Foon, Matt M, Fabian Schultz, Shad, Juju755, I Like Bananas, Herb Wright, Ethan Shannon, Rurik Curie, Bootnet, Hull Horse, Matthew Sabot, Night Silver, Colton Lincoln, McMonster Gaming, Powell, Leon Maximilian, Hazy, Alex Brody, Gabriel Rubin, Mars Bars, Brand Versus, Adrian, Gears, Poison Benjamin, Sharad Hearn, Neo0412, Joe Beasy, Zaza Lord, and Hecky. And now moving over to the latest Patreon signups, a massive thank you to Tony D, Hellbell, George Jakub, Lewin, Brody Huggins, George Delgado, Juna, Taylor Stone King, Matt Cook, Izzy, Joe Becerra, Kieran Danner, Skekiro, Swirzy, Euless Reyes, Stuart Hollin, Clementine Sanes, Luke Lindolly, Tanmay Keller, Captain Lonely, Aaron, Daniel Glazier, Matthew James, Base Attic 01, Natasha Ojos Blanquedos, Quad, Nefali, Josh Edwards, The Node, Little Donny Superfan, Connoisseur of Asbestos, Caleb Southwell, Amaranth, Roman AK457, Big Pill, the Apex Raven, and Demetrius of Antidis. So once again, a massive shout out to all of the YouTube members and patrons, and a big thank you to everyone else for watching.